All right. Well, Glenn, we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of our LinkedIn Live office hours, where the brains of the operation, Glenn Saunders, my partner in crime, goes through answering some of your questions as it relates to NetSuite support, optimization, all things NetSuite. Got a couple of questions. We're going to give it another minute or two for folks to start trickling in. But we are super excited to have everybody. And with that, Glenn, would you mind providing a quick introduction? Tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Glenn Saunders. I'm COO here at Nuage and been working in ERP for a little over 20 years. I've been working with NetSuite since around 2012 and have some experience with some other platforms and applications, but I've done a little bit of everything as far as it goes from project management, implementation, tinker with development. I wouldn't call myself a developer, but and serve a lot of times as a solution consultant, solution architect, as well, helping overcome complexities and things that you might see within the application, trying to work around some of the nuances of ERP applications, specifically with relates to NetSuite. But yeah, I look forward to talking through some things, and hopefully I can throw out a tidbit or two of knowledge and not get too much wrong.
Well, better than me. By way of introduction, one of the partners here at Nuage, run our sales marketing efforts. A little about Nuage. We've been a partner for going on 13 years at this point, 200 plus implementations. Do everything from sale of NetSuite, implementation of NetSuite, post-go live support, and optimization. So today it's going to be focused on post-go live support, optimization, a lot of how-to questions you may have. If you've got any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat via LinkedIn, via YouTube. We'll try to address them. And if we don't know the answer, we'll pretend they don't exist. So with that, why don't we start with the first question, which is around workflow sending statements from an incorrect subsidiary. So question for you, Glenn, why do workflow triggered customer statements default to the customer's primary subsidiary, even when the save search targets another?
My assumption here, and it is an assumption because I wasn't going to set this up to test it out, just to be fair, is that NetSuite's keying off of the primary customer on the customer record. It's using the save search to gather the customer list to determine the statements to send, but then it's going to send it specific. So what you may need to do is create a script to do this that sets the actual subsidiary for what you're sending when you're passing that into the URL of the whatever statement you're generating. That would be my assumption, because a lot of times the system wants to default to what it knows. So when it looks at that primary customer, the primary subsidiary on the customer record, inherently it's going to use that to say, oh, this is what we should be sending. Even though the save search is specifying the subsidiary, my assumption again is the save search is just saying get the customers to determine which customers to send the statement to, because that's not a parameter that's being passed to the statement sending. But like I said, that's an assumption.
Gotcha.
That was a lot of technical mumbo jumbo as well.
Yeah, no, tons of mumbo jumbo and went right over my head, but thank you for answering that. Hopefully it was accurate. We've got a couple of folks hopping in. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat and we'll try to address them in real time. Next question is regarding assembly builds. Assembly builds to kits, unit of measure handling. So question for you, Glenn, is how can unit of measure be managed when converting assembly builds into kits, especially for outbound ASN and e-commerce? Kits lack inherent unit of measure, which creates operational challenges.
This is the easy one. Don't use kits. Kits have limited functionality. They create problems if you ever try to use MRP for pegging, for determining. NetSuite does some weird stuff on how it stores this data in the back end. For one, it's not exposed in the save search, but it is in other areas, like in analytics. So like you can see the kit components within analytics, but not within a safe search. There's all this little nuances around how this works. Don't use kits. I realize you may want some automation around how assembly builds work, or you may want them to be printed out on the sales order. work around customizing your printouts and your layouts for things. Don't use kits just because it satisfies a printing requirement, because it's simple. Design the process around core business functionality, because if you're really assembling something and you're tracking it as an assembly with unit of measure and different things like that, that's an easier way and better way of tracking it. And don't use kits. If you need kit functionality, look at item groups, because then it still explodes everything out. And again, I had someone that I knew that used kits because they were told, oh, well, because you can't not print everything on the item group. It literally takes a snippet of code that says, if you put a custom field that says, if print flag equals true, print, else don't, within the HTML of that printing. And you just saved yourself a whole hell of a lot of trouble in trying to deal with kits versus item, item groups, which the way kits show and demand, it just creates complexity. So.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing a little bit of a resurgence with kits. And I think that may just be limitation on implementations. Folks trying to do things in-house and saying, oh yeah, this makes sense. I feel like we saw this.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was saying it's simple, and I think people coming from QuickBooks and other applications, that's what they're used to. So it's an easier step. It doesn't require assembly builds. It removes a step that's necessary when you have to go in and say build assemblies to create inventory. But I mean, again, there's simple automations and things you can do that will allow you better management of the business than just deploying kits, because that's the easy button, but that's not necessarily the right button for you to push. If that makes sense.
No, I mean, 9 times out of 10, it's definitely creating a hornet's nest that somebody like us has to come, bring the little cup with gasoline filled in it to get rid of it. So next question for you is on the sub side with parent subsidiaries paying bills for child subsidiaries. So the question we have here is, a parent company wants to track bills coded to a child subsidiary while paying from parent bank accounts. How do I do this?
You can use the transaction line distribution that NetSuite delivers for free, which allows you to distribute a bill to different entities. But I believe it still expects you to pay from that entity. I honestly don't know, because just personal opinion, that works well to split out expenses, but it doesn't manage the payment side. Most organizations want to enter the bills where they are, but then pay from a parent company, which is what this sounds like. We've built a central payer model. It always requires some tweaking. But we've built a central payer model that allows you to pay from one sub to any others. And all it does is it creates the do to, do from. I used to work with an old Epicor application that surprisingly did this much better than NetSuite did, simply because it would know the do to, do froms, and you could pay anybody from anywhere, and it didn't really care because it would just book the entries for you behind the scenes. Obviously you can get a little nuance with that. It does require some setup. It's not just a turnkey, like let's turn this baby on and start, but we do have that capability that we have built out within NetSuite. That's the only way I'm familiar with it. If I'm completely wrong in NetSuite and you can use the transaction line distribution, I just know when that originally came out, it barely worked. And then they redid it and it's better. But at the same time, it works from the vendor bill side, not from the payment side. And if you think about, like, let's just think about a healthcare organization that has facilities all across the United States, and perhaps they have their own like office manager there who's going to key in all the bills, right? The utility bill that comes from, what is it in South Georgia, Sunbelt or whatever. And then you've got your telephone bill and this and that. Not everything's corporate, but you want corporate to control the money, right? Because corporate doesn't want to let them pay their own bills, right? Then they have access. They have 150 bank accounts. So what they want to do is pay from here out to everybody. and let it flow through the accounting system that way, which, to be fair, is a better practice. NetSuite doesn't just natively have that capability. Again, that I'm aware of, and I'm pretty certain, because that's why we built this vendor central payer model.
All right. Well, one that I think is near and dear to every NetSuite system administrator's heart is the notion of sticky notes. This has, again, I feel like this was a cool whiz-bang feature 10 years ago with NetSuite, and then people stopped using it. And much like the attachments feature on pages is starting to make a little bit of a resurgence. We'll see what happens with the chatbots and everything that will come in subsequent releases. But sticky notes, mixed opinions and concerns. Question for you. Users ask about adding sticky notes, add-on pros and cons, for example, clutter versus utility. What should one consider before enabling this bad boy?
The system degradation that's going to occur by enabling it.
Bingo. Yeah.
That is just the same reason that NetSuite no longer enables the file drag and drop and demo accounts, and it adds time to the page load because it sits on top. It was developed, not necessarily optimized, not really well designed for mass use. What I typically would recommend, and a lot of people may disagree, I think my thing on this is it's a cool feature, but what are you trying to get at? Are you trying to use color to illuminate changes in status or ideas or things? So there's things you can do with fields and colors on the native forms to highlight things and make them appear more relevant that I would recommend over something like this. That, again, if you're comfortable with the page taking a few more seconds to load, then by all means. Most people I know, and for anybody who's worked with me or knows me, I'm very impatient. And Louis shaking his head. I'm a very impatient person, so I get really annoyed anytime a screen takes longer than it should to load. Like, it drives me insane. So,
all right. So I'd say your opinion is don't ever touch that thing. Throw it in the trash can. Use real sticky notes if you have to.
Use the just use custom note fields and put them on the form, and if they're filled in, you can like highlight them, and you can there's things you can do with a little bit of code that, again, I'm not just saying go code stuff. I just know it works more efficiently. But have a thought out process before you just enable features because it looks cool. So
all right. Next question we have here is constructing a customer transaction report across POs, SOs, invoices, and payments. So the question is it possible to display a flow of transactions, unbilled, sales orders, invoices, payments in one unified safe search or report?
It is, with some caveats. You have to be able to key off of a significant value, right? Because NetSuite's transaction table is flat, it's just transactions. You can filter on type. So I can go in there and just put name is, or I need to concatenate between purchase orders and sales orders to know it's a drop ship and different things like that. But if it's a drop ship sales order, drop ship purchase order, see, if the purchase order is not directly linked to the sales order, how do we know? There's no correlation that I bought inventory over here, but it was for this if I don't have that linked to some way to that transaction. So that's kind of the caveat. Otherwise, you can build a transactional history report across the entirety of the application suite. So it's more around making sure you're structuring the data in the way you need it to capture that information, which a lot of times is what it boils down to. And I've made this mistake before, to be fair. At a go live with a client, we didn't have proper linking between their drop ships for conversion, and it created a hassle on reporting. So I've lived this pain in the ass, to be fair.
All right. Well, just two questions again for the audience. If you have anything else you'd like to add, please feel free to drop a note and we'll do our best to answer them in real time. But with the last two questions, the next one here is using calculated formula columns, referencing other formula columns and save searches. So kind of in the same vein as the last question, hopefully not too much of a can of worms. But the question here is someone is trying to compute months of inventory by referencing two formula columns, average sales and current inventory, and they can't get it to work.
Yeah, so essentially you have to build the formulas together. Now, I'm assuming that they're using, if it's a calculated field on, let's say it's on the item record, if the value's not stored, that creates its own issue.
Right.
And essentially you can create a field in NetSuite that is called a calculated field where it's the result of a formula, but it never stores it in the database. Basically what happens is when you load the screen, it calculates for display purposes. And when you save it, it goes away and it's blank in the database. There is a workaround to copy that. And look, every time it loads the form, it'll copy it into a custom field. So it just copies it, boom, gets the value from the field. And anyway, it's a workaround. But in this instance, if I have a save search formula here and a save search formula here, and I want to combine those formulas, I have to combine them in a formula syntax to get that calculation. And that can be trouble when you get like 4 lines of code saying if this, then that, case statements. But that's unfortunately what you have to do. And that's one of those things that sometimes it takes a little know-how and experience of working with those formulas. And I did SQL before I did really much of anything, and learned a lot about that stuff and how to read that type of code. Some of it pretty poorly, I would say, but I did muddle through and learn quite a bit about it. And I think that's just one of those areas that it can be challenging to go through all that and get the code right. But that's essentially what you have to do.
Gotcha. All right. Well, next question, which I think rarely can I actually answer these, but glad that I might have a little bit of credibility on this one, is with respect to NetSuite and AI. So what NetSuite AI options are available in the marketplace today? So Glenn, you want to take a first crack or you want me to jump into this one?
Sure. So, you kind of threw me for a loop the other day when you're like, oh yeah, they were talking about NetSuite AI and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what AI? They've got the prompt studio. They do have the LLM module, which is going to require customization to do anything. So you're going to have to crack open SuiteScript, write your own kind of LLM, but you do have access to their language learning model, which is cool. But really the only thing native NetSuite is delivering is, clean up my description or clean up translation from Spanish to English, which are cool, but those are top level function stuff that's been available for a while if you're inclined to go that route. That's not truly artificial intelligence, anomaly detection, intelligence around business value and things like that. And I know where you're going with this is our friends at Causey, and their application is, from my understanding, really the only out of the box NetSuite AI solution out there that is really AI, where it's harvesting your NetSuite data and giving you intuition about it that you otherwise wouldn't have into the solution. And Causey, I will say, just got listed in the Suite App Store as of, I just looked, and it was the first one listed there, which is really super cool for our friends over there,
Awesome.
Josh, those guys over there. So they're live and in the Suite App Store, which is super exciting for those guys.
That's great. Yeah, I think as we've been talking to a lot of organizations on their AI strategies, I think a lot of folks are blurring the lines of what AI actually does versus BI versus NetSuite's EPM tools. And I think probably worth just calling out, when you look at AI, what is AI really going to do from an analysis perspective? It's the reasoning. BI is your historical and current analysis capabilities, and an EPM solution is really historical only. So what do I get with AI? You're going to get the root cause analysis. You're going to get strategy recommendations. You're going to get predictions, and that's what everybody's after.
Well, I will say that is what NetSuite is trying to get to, or sorry, Oracle is trying to get to. Let's be clear. PBCS and EPM is Oracle products, not NetSuite. You can buy it and it's got integration, but it's an Oracle product. And that's where a lot of their AI experience is going, because it will take your historical and infer into the future, leveraging NetSuite data. And so that's where the AI that NetSuite's touting is really going. It's into PBCS and the EPM tools, and I think account reconciliation, which is built on top of EPM. So that's where we're really starting to see those elements come in. And, I think for a lot of our customers, those are just kind of overkill. We'll see as time unfolds, how much of that gets put into NetSuite, or if a solution like, I think some people just don't want to implement a budgeting and forecasting system just to get AI, or the EPM side of things, analytics warehouse to get the AI components that, to me, should be native to the ERP system, which is the heart and soul of where that data comes from. I know a lot of organizations need to mash up other data, but a lot of that really, it's in the ERP system. I mean, that's where it comes from. That's where all your financial records, your customer interactions, your customer history, purchasing history, particularly for inventory heavy companies. So,
yeah. Again, when organizations look at AI, probably worth calling out is I think there's three different types of kind of AI use cases. First being retrieval. That's, giving you the data you need to make decisions. The next one, which is more on the agent side, is the task type, which is managing, completing defined tasks, acting on behalf of the user. We're starting to see that with Copilot. We're starting to see that elsewhere, kind of the A to A capabilities. I don't know that I would trust that quite yet. I think that's, we'll see, I'm sure, in the next release from NetSuite, maybe at Suite World, a little bit of that. And then you have the autonomous side, which is still agent to agent, but making more of your decisions, executing complex workflows. Still way too early for an ERP. Yeah.
Preventative stuff and higher level thinking that it takes, financial analysts combing through data to figure out things like that. I agree.
Yeah.
That it'll be interesting as that evolves into the marketplace, like testing and validation, right? That what it does is correct. Like,
absolutely. I mean, I was in a Reddit battle earlier with somebody in the NetSuite Reddit channel who was saying, "Oh, check out Sage's Copilot. It's so great." Well, if you look, I was listening to a podcast a couple months ago. Sage's Copilot application was pulling customer data from other customers and spitting out results, inaccurately. So, I think treading carefully with a solution that can be autonomous and do work on your behalf, a la the Jason Lemkin of the world, having all of your data get wiped out in a matter of seconds. I would make sure you're working with partners who actually know what they're doing. But it's moving fast, and as Glenn shared, check out Causey if you get a chance. They know NetSuite, which is pretty exciting.
I think that's the other thing, is knowing it purpose-built AI before we have like ChatGPT is a large generalized model, right? Purpose-built AI is going to have more strategic value for organizations than generalized AI. Yeah. Generalized AI is super cool and it's a lot of fun to play around with, but when the rubber meets the road, it's not going to take you there to that next evolution of what you're trying to get from a business value perspective. And that's where, like, Causey, you go deep. Our friend Brandon, who's at Stellar AI now out of Chicago, like, they do purpose-built AI solutions for enterprises. like you're going to get more out of those because you're really honing in on exactly what you're trying to do. As opposed to how do I do this? How do I do that? Well, what about this? And all the general questions and things. So,
All right. Well, that concludes our LinkedIn Live. Appreciate you guys all joining us today. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Glenn or myself. Happy to answer things as quickly as possible in real time, and hope everybody has a great weekend. Glenn, any closing words?
Nope, just thanks for having me as always. I hope everybody's doing well out there and enjoying the end of summer as it comes. I'm melting here in Florida, so ready for some cooler weather.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thanks all.